In 1992, Juice captured the raw hunger of youth, power, respect, and survival in a city that offered none of it for free. But when the cameras stopped rolling, the violence didn't fade. It followed the cast into real life, through accidents, crime, addiction, and early death. 34 years later, the story behind Juice is darker than the film itself. Omar Epps as Q. Born on July 20th, 1973, in Brooklyn, New York, Omar Epps was just 18 years old when Juice premiered in 1992. Cast as Q, the thoughtful, morally grounded friend who resists violence, Epps became the emotional counterweight to Bishop's chaos. The role made Epps an instant symbol of intelligence and quiet strength among young black actors of the early 1990s. Unlike many breakout performances driven by aggression, Q stood out precisely because he refused to descend. Hollywood quickly recognized Epps as a safe lead, dependable, articulate, and principled, and his career surged through films like Higher Learning, Love, and Basketball, and later television success. But that image came with a hidden cost. Epps soon found himself boxed into the good guy archetype, the responsible friend, the emotionally stable romantic lead, the man who survives while others fall. While peers gained notoriety through scandal or extremity, Epps faced a quieter pressure, the burden of consistency in an industry that rewards spectacle. Roles for thoughtful male leads narrowed, and Epps transitioned increasingly into television, finding renewed visibility on House MD. Yet even there, his departure underscored a familiar tension: longevity without full control. Unlike many of his Juice co-stars, his life never imploded publicly, but the absence of collapse did not equal freedom. By 2026, Omar Epps remains alive, respected, and professionally stable, a rarity among the Juice cast. Germaine Hopkins as Steele. Born on August 23, 1974, in Newark, New Jersey, Germaine Hopkins was just 17 years old when Juice premiered in 1992. Cast as Steele, the volatile, impulsive member of the group, Hopkins embodied the raw edge of street loyalty and unchecked bravado. As the spotlight faded after Juice, he gravitated toward real-life gang affiliations, chasing a sense of belonging and power that Hollywood had briefly provided and then withdrawn. The discipline required to survive a film career gave way to the chaos of street life, where consequences were permanent and forgiveness was rare. That choice nearly cost him his life. Hopkins was shot multiple times in separate real-world incidents, surviving attacks that left lasting physical and psychological scars. Each recovery pushed him further from acting and deeper into a cycle of retaliation, fear, and hypervigilance, a reality far harsher than anything scripted on screen. On December 15, 2011, Hopkins was arrested for attempting to purchase 91 kilograms of marijuana from an undercover police officer, facing a potential 5-year prison sentence. Though ultimately sentenced to 30 days in jail and 3 years of probation, the arrest publicly confirmed what many feared. The actor who once warned against violence in Juice had been consumed by it. In October 2017, he was arrested again in Apex, North Carolina, after police discovered 2.6 kilograms of marijuana in his vehicle. Hopkins later pleaded guilty to drug possession. A 4-month jail sentence was suspended and replaced with 24 months of supervised probation. By 2026, Germaine Hopkins stands as one of Juice's most haunting real-life echoes, a man who survived bullets and prison, but never escaped the gravity of the streets that shaped him. Kain as Raheem. Born on November 22, 1964, in New York City, Kain was 27 years old when Juice premiered in 1992. Cast as Raheem, the quietly loyal friend caught between reason and recklessness, Kain brought a grounded realism to the group, a presence that felt lived in rather than performative. After Juice, he followed with roles in films like For Colored Girls and Love Jones, carving out a niche built on sincerity rather than spectacle. But as Hollywood shifted its attention, that space narrowed. Leading roles dried up, supporting parts became sporadic, and the momentum promised by Juice slowly evaporated without a single dramatic collapse, only a gradual fading. Off-screen, Kain's life entered a different kind of storm. He married artist Elise Lyon, a personal milestone that unexpectedly triggered public backlash. Online critics accused him of betraying his cultural roots by marrying a white woman, unleashing waves of racially charged commentary and personal attacks directed not only at Kain, but at his wife. The vitriol exposed a harsh reality. For some actors, private choices are never truly private, and identity becomes a battleground long after the spotlight dims. By 2026, Khalil Kain is 61 years old. He largely absent from mainstream screens, choosing a quieter path away from Hollywood's relentless spotlight. Samuel L. Jackson as Trip. Samuel L. Jackson was born on December 21, 1948 in Washington, D.C. He was 43 when Juice premiered in 1992, cast as Trip, the lone adult authority whose weary, street-hardened presence grounded the film's moral collapse. Despite years of stage training and small film roles, he was trapped in a brutal cycle of cocaine and heroin addiction. During the early 1990s, his dependence escalated to the point of near self-destruction, draining his finances, damaging relationships, and pushing his body toward collapse. The breaking point came in 1991, just before Juice reached audiences. Jackson was found unconscious on the floor of his New York apartment after a drug binge that nearly killed him. The incident forced an intervention, not from Hollywood, but from survival itself. Facing the real possibility of death, he entered rehabilitation with no guarantees that a career still awaited him on the other side. What followed was not merely recovery, but reinvention. Clean and focused, Jackson returned to acting stripped of ego and desperation. His explosive performance in Jungle Fever announced a rebirth, and within a few years, Pulp Fiction transformed him into an icon. The man who once hovered at the edge of obscurity and overdose became one of the most recognizable and bankable actors in film history. By 2026, Samuel L. Jackson is 77 years old and stands as one of the most prolific and successful actors in film history. Clean for decades, still working, and globally recognized, he represents the rare case of escape within the Juice cast. Queen Latifah, as Roughhouse MC. Born on March 18, 1970. In Newark, New Jersey, Queen Latifah was just 22 years old when Juice premiered in 1992, emerging at the edges of the film's cultural moment rather than its narrative center. Though her role was brief, her presence symbolized something larger, a rare female voice in a male-dominated, violence-driven hip-hop era. By the early 1990s, she had already become a trailblazer. With albums like All Hail the Queen, Latifah challenged misogyny head-on, positioning herself as both an artist and an activist. She was not merely surviving the industry, she was reshaping it. Yet that visibility came with pressure. Being a symbol meant carrying expectations no young performer could fully control, especially in a culture spiraling toward excess and self-destruction. The danger became real in 1995. Latifah was involved in a serious car accident that flipped her vehicle, leaving her shaken and physically injured. Though she survived without permanent disability, the crash served as a brutal wake-up call. Surrounded by fame, substances, and a fast-burning lifestyle, she confronted how quickly momentum could turn fatal. Unlike many peers, she chose restraint over recklessness, stepping back before the spiral closed in. By 2026, Queen Latifah is 56 years old and stands as one of the few figures from the Juice era who not only endured, but evolved. Her career spans music, film, television, and entrepreneurship, built on deliberate choices rather than survival alone. Vincent Laresca as Radames. Vincent Laresca was born on January 21, 1964 in New York City. When Juice premiered in 1992, he was 28 years old, cast as Radames, a minor yet recognizable presence within the film's volatile street world. He never dominated the screen, but his quiet authenticity made him the kind of face audiences remembered, even if they couldn't place his name. After Juice, Laresca continued working in scattered film and television roles. He never broke through as a lead, but for a time he remained visible, drifting between supporting parts that suggested a modest, sustainable career. As trends shifted and opportunities narrowed, those appearances became less frequent, and momentum quietly slipped away without a single defining failure. Laresca struggled with substance abuse and periods of instability, compounded by personal accidents and a growing loss of direction. Without the insulation of fame or consistent work, each setback carried heavier consequences. The drift wasn't dramatic, it was cumulative, marked by missteps that gradually pushed him out of alignment with the industry. Now, Vincent Laresca lives largely outside the Hollywood spotlight, maintaining a low-profile life while remaining loosely connected to the industry through occasional projects and personal pursuits. Cindy Herron as Yolanda. Born on September 26, 1961, in San Francisco, California, Cindy Herron was 30 years old when Juice premiered in 1992. Cast as Yolanda, a small but emotionally resonant presence in the film's orbit, Herron brought a quiet femininity to a story dominated by male aggression. At the time, Herron stood at the height of her fame as a founding member of En Vogue, one of the most successful female R&B groups in music history. With chart-topping hits, global tours, and a polished public image, she embodied success, discipline, and crossover appeal. Acting was not her primary path, but her appearance in Juice reflected how deeply En Vogue was woven into the era's visual and musical identity. Behind the glamour, however, pressure mounted. The demands of fame, relentless touring, and the expectation of perfection took a personal toll. Herron later spoke about navigating emotional strain and major life transitions during the peak of her career, including relationship struggles and the challenge of maintaining stability while living under constant public scrutiny. While not defined by scandal, her life was marked by moments where the margin between control and collapse felt dangerously thin. By 2026, Cindy Herron is 64 years old and largely absent from film and television, choosing a quieter life away from Hollywood's spotlight. Her legacy endures primarily through music rather than cinema, a reminder that not every brush with a cult classic leads to a lasting acting career. In the world of Juice, Yolanda was a brief presence. In real life, Cindy Herron stepped away before the noise consumed her. Gore II as Brian. Gore was born on December 15, 1982, in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. He was just 9 years old when Juice premiered in 1992. Cast as Brian, a small, almost blink-and-you-miss-it presence, he represented the innocence orbiting the film's violent core. Gore's real rise came later. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, he became widely recognized as Junior Kyle on My Wife and Kids, a role that brought him fame, financial success, and the pressures of growing up on television. For several years, he embodied the familiar child star trajectory, visibility, stability, and the illusion of a secure future in Hollywood. Behind the scenes, the transition into adulthood proved difficult. After the sitcom ended, Gore struggled to maintain momentum, facing the same industry indifference that traps many former child actors. Legal issues and reports of reckless behavior surfaced, reinforcing the narrative of a young performer losing direction once structure and routine disappeared. The early exposure to fame, without a clear path forward, became a quiet liability. By 2026, Gore II is 43 years old and largely absent from mainstream film and television. LaTanya Richardson Jackson as Steele's mother. Born on October 2, 1949 in Atlanta, Georgia, LaTanya